Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be talking about importing and updating lists. This is also the time of year when things change, right? So we take a look at our data and we decide, oh, you know what? We weren't using customer types effectively last year. I'd like to get those all updated and corrected. Or we get the notice that our favorite vendor went out of business or is going out of business and we need to mass update our preferred vendor. We decided it's time to change our prices, right? So this is kind of the things that we are going to be covering today, is the how-to of these different things. Just a little reminder about who Fourlane is. So what makes us unique over here is that we mostly do QuickBooks, right? But we also handle these other products. We like to take a love it or list it approach, where we are either keeping people in the product that they had a failed implementation of, or we help them get into, usually it's QuickBooks. Usually people come to us because they want to switch to QuickBooks. So we'll maximize QuickBooks. We are experts in accounting and software, so we know what the system can do as well as what those debits and credits are supposed to be doing. And then, of course, we help people get through change. So today, you know, I like to spend most of the time in product. We're going to be talking about 4 different things. So pasting from Excel and how that can be helpful for us. We're going to be talking about importing from Excel using the products I sell function, importing from Excel using the advanced import function, and then IIF file importing. Now, a lot of this could be importing new items as well, right? So if we have clients who are in the retail industry, maybe they have to import all their new line of, you know, shoes that came out this quarter or something like that. So you could import fresh data. I'm primarily going to be talking about updating data today, but it works similarly. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in product. All right, so I'm going to be focused on inventory for most of today, because inventory, or items and inventory, not just inventory, items. Because if you can do it on an items list, you can pretty much do it everywhere else, right? That's the most complicated list that we work with the most fields. So I'm going to be focused on that, but you're going to see in there some of the other lists as well. So the first one we're going to talk about is paste from Excel. So this came out a couple years, not a couple years ago. It's been out for a while, but it's newer than the other ways that we're going to be talking about today that have been around for, decades. So how you can get to this is pretty much from any list. You can go to the Inventory Center. You have the drop down of Excel here. We have import from Excel. That's what we're going to be talking about secondly, but we have paste from Excel. This paste from Excel. You can see it if you go to the Customer Center. Same thing, Excel, paste from Excel. Okay, that's what we're going to be getting to. So I click into paste from Excel. Nice about this view here is that it is, move my open Windows list open a little bit. It is very quick and obvious what we can update from here. So there are actually fields in paste from Excel that you cannot update in other versions that I'm going to show you later, right? And I'm not going to go through all those today. But the reason is because this is updating in product versus some of the other ones that have to go through the API type thing, or are just regimented. They're just tight in their controls. You can see here, so I can do this for customers, vendors, service items, inventory part, non-inventory parts, inventory items, vendor items. If I'm trying to update another list, I have to go somewhere else and do that, okay? This is what's limited to. So as an example, I have one client who had a whole bunch of other charge items. Sorry, can't do that here. The idea of paste from Excel is what it sounds like. Maybe you drop these lists into Excel and then you can come in and just paste in here. We recommend customers not use paste from Excel if they've got more than 200 lines of data that they're updating, like copy and pasting in. Because when you hit save, it goes and makes all those changes, especially if other people are logged in the file, because it does not make you go into single user mode. Well, it depends on what you're editing, but it doesn't make you go into single user mode. And so you can cause other people to have some problems. Okay, so one thing in here, so let's take that scenario of our vendor is going out of business and we need to mass update a preferred vendor. Or maybe they just changed their name, who knows, right? They're, Fran's Fasteners is going out of business, now they are Franny's Fasteners. So I can come into my find to narrow down my list in here, and I can say search, and here are the fields I can search by, or I can search by all fields. I'm going to narrow it down to preferred vendor, search for everything Fran. It limits it to everything Fran. Not that many things buying from Fran. And then I can change it to the vendor I am going to buy from now, Jeff's Janitorial, right click, copy down, boom, updated, save changes. Yeah. Very simple, right? So for something small like that, very simple. If I was updating 5,000 items, it would take a while. And what we found with this space from Excel, if you're doing multiple, let's say 200 probably being really overly cautious. But if you're doing like 5,000, you might have to do it a couple times. Like you might hit save and it says save, and then you go look and you're like, it didn't really save. So you have to do it again. And that's not really a great feeling, right? When you're trying to just fix something and move on. The other thing about this version is you're not actually doing something in Excel. So I can't, right click adding column and put in some functions and formulas. But it does work extremely well for, small changes, things like that. If I wanted to change any kind of pricing in here, so pricing is going to be the one we talked about in the next area. If I wanted to change any pricing, I could take these down to Excel, right, by going to the list and dropping it to Excel, filtering by preferred vendor, and then editing, and then literally copy and paste into here. So when we're talking about fixing like customers, and we want to, and it's really nice, you can customize your columns, and I want to look at customer type, add that in here. I can get rid of, all these things that I don't need to see, or I can just take customer type and move it up to the top of the list even. We're talking about anything that doesn't have a customer, so I can click on this and see which ones don't have customer types. If we had decided that everything of a certain customer type was going to go to a different customer type, or whatever the logic is that you decide. They don't have copy up, they only have copy down, by the way. So to copy down, I have to come in here to the bottom, change it, and then I can copy down. So mass editing and changing those, fixing the ones that we missed, we forgot to fill in, right? This is a great little tool to do stuff like that. Okay. Data needs to be accurate for us to report on data. Okay. Let me just stop for a second because I see a couple questions coming in. So the first one says, I have QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise Silver. Am I able to use inventory features with that software? So yep, 100%. What Silver has inventory, it has enhanced inventory, if you want to Google that, enhanced. What Silver doesn't have is advanced inventory, which is like lot numbers, bins, serial numbers, using a handheld device, cycle counts. Expiration dates, that's new. Okay, what will the history lookup be during the time it was Fran? So Stacy, the transactions, when I change the list, the transactions that existed in the file don't change. What just changes is if I were running any reports and I was filtering by preferred vendor, not by vendor on transaction. But if I was filtering, so if I like came in here and I said I'm going to do custom transaction detail report, and I want to filter for preferred vendor, then it will only show me items with the new preferred vendor. So Fran's wouldn't show me any items anymore. Right? I don't know what I did in here, but shouldn't show me any items anymore. I have to come in and see what I'm doing. Okay. So it doesn't change. I don't know why, like an inventory adjustment. I have no idea. It doesn't change who the vendor is on the transaction. Oh, I know why, because it was picking up when I've used Fran's as a vendor on transaction in there. So it doesn't change who the transaction is tied to. It only changes the list information, right? So again, if I were to look at my list of items and I said customize and filter for preferred vendor, because it's a list field, not a transaction field, right? Then nothing's going to show up there. There we go. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay, let's go on. Import from Excel. So in this one, import from Excel, there's two different ways to do this. One is if I go to edit and preferences, edit and preferences, file util, I'm so used to doing that. File utilities import, we have Excel files here. Okay. It always gives you this error that says, hey, are you sure you don't want to use paste from Excel? No, I don't want to use paste from Excel. Then it takes you to the screen. So this is the older way. It's been around for a longer time, not as long as IIF files. It's been around for a longer time. So there's two different options that we're going to be talking about here. One is products I sell on the left side over here. This is more guided, but more guided means fewer options. The other one we're going to talk about is advanced import. Okay. So if I go to products I sell, we're talking about inventory parts. Gives you a warning again, are you sure you want to do this, or would you like to do a backup copy first? Because when you do these changes, there is no undo. The only undo you have is to revert to a backup. So do you want to import? It's very confusing that way it asks it. Do you want to continue to import this data? Yes, I do. Let me go. Then it opens up for you in this version. It opens up a spreadsheet that you can go fill in. Okay. So I'm going to, just because of the view, I have it zoomed in so we can see everything very well, but I'm going to unfreeze my pane so that we can zoom down. So you can see here, it gives you an Excel spreadsheet for you to fill in. Okay. The best way to get this data, let me close out of this for a second, I'll add my data later. The best way to get to this data is you go into your list and you can export it to Excel. Okay. When you export anything to Excel, we always want to be choosing our advanced tab. You uncheck space between rows, or space between columns, and then you uncheck include QuickBooks Expert Guide, and then say okay, and we export it out. I'm gonna let this build it. Whenever you export from QuickBooks to Excel, even if it's a really large file, don't do anything else. You have to let it just do its thing. If you do other things, you click around, you like go to Slack or whatever, it will cause problems with your export. Okay, now we have our export here in Excel. I am going to get rid of, in this way, right, I'm going to get rid of the columns that I don't need. So I'm going to get rid of, active status and this first blank column. You have to keep item, because item is the unique identifier when it comes to items in QuickBooks. Like customer name is, customer is the unique identifier. I'm not going to care about any of these things. I'm going to update sales price. Okay, so we're going to be changing our price. I'm going to get rid of all the other columns except for type, item, and price. Okay, so in this case, oh, the other thing that is usually pretty good to do is you can filter, right? Turn on your filters and filter to get rid of things that you, like types you don't want to update. So if I didn't want to update other charges or whatever, I could get rid of those types. All right, so, excuse me. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to change the price. So the way, I mean, maybe I would also take a look at these items and see one is called care and delete. Maybe I need to go make that inactive and not worry about it, but okay, I digress. So I'm going to use we're raising our prices by 20%. So I am going to use a nice calculation here. So I'm going to do round up and take this number times 1.2%, 20%, and I'm going to round to 0.1, right? So I want it to round up to the nearest dollar. I don't want it to have anything funky. Everything's dollars. We don't have any cents in here. Then I can double click on that little box on the corner. Do that again so you guys can see this little green box here. Double click on that green box. It copies everything down. I now have my new pricing. I can copy this and right click, paste special values, and say okay. Okay, so my pricing is now updated on my Excel spreadsheet. I went too fast on this. We do have our replays on YouTube, so you can come back and look at this if you need to, and follow along, right, while you're doing it if you need to. But now that's done. Okay, so now I have the pricing I want, I have the items I want, etc. So let's go back into QuickBooks again. Oh, let me save this too, just because last time I save as and browse. I'm just going to stick it in my documents folder as book 6. Okay. Okay, back into QuickBooks now. So we do our file and utilities and import. And we're going to import Excel files this time. Bypass my message, say no here. The do products I sell, say yes here. Going to open up my Excel spreadsheet. Again, you don't usually have to do this, but I have to unfreeze my panes so we can see more. And then I just copy and paste. So I can come in here from book 7. I copy my item. Okay. And then I can come in here and do my sales price. I'm going to leave all the things in here that are going to have errors, right? So yes. And then, oops, over here. And then one of the fields that it requires, see the little asterisk here, is it requires is it tracked as inventory? So I have to find the ones that are tracked as inventory. So back on my little book here, I can say equals if this equals inventory part, then yes. If not, no. Right, copy that down. So it picks up all my yeses for inventory parts. So I can copy this, paste it right into my columns here. I don't know, some kind of error popped up. Okay, so now everything's pasted in correctly. Pasted in correctly, not incorrectly. And I can just go ahead and say add my data now. Okay, and say save that my data. Makes me save the file. I already had one from earlier when I was testing. And it thinks about all the things it wants to think about. And it kind of bounces around a little bit. You know, sometimes you see QuickBooks do these kinds of things where it will bounce to Excel and open up QuickBooks and it adds the data. So 67 records were updated. There were 9 errors, and I can open the error file. Again, I have to go to view and unfreeze my panes. So here are the errors. So it leaves you with an error. So that's nice, right? I get errors. In the paste from Excel, you'll also get errors if there's a reason for your errors as well. But it won't show it like, it'll narrow it down for just the errors. You will see the errors. So here it's saying, this is not a valid type for this item. Okay. So basically what it's saying is, I will update inventory parts. I will not update service items. I will not update assembly items. Okay. So just something to be aware of. But the prices are updated. So that's one way. The other thing to notice about this is there are 5 fields, and technically one of them is not even something you can update, right? You can update description, you can update sales price, you can update manufacturer's part number. So file, utilities, import, and we're going to go to Excel file, so same place. And now here. Now we're going to go over to advanced import. All right. Now with advanced import, what we do is we can go in and browse for an Excel document, so we can use our own Excel document, not have to force it into theirs, not have to force it into QuickBooks. Then we choose our sheet. Once it allows us to, we can choose our mapping. This is one I had set up earlier again when I was testing. So I'm going to select a new mapping, and I'm going to call it item 2. You select what are you importing to, so you can see what I can import into: customers, vendors, items, accounts. That's different. And then vendor items, in case you guys don't know what that is, right? When you have multiple items or items that can be purchased from multiple vendors. So I'm going to select item, and then look at all these fields that I can import into. Boom, boom, boom. Lots of fields, including custom fields, so I could update if I needed to mass update something, right? But not mass update in a way that I can like right click and copy down, mass update in a way that I have a whole bunch of different data that has to go into these fields. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to choose type. I'm going to choose name, which is actually item, right? It picks up my headers from my Excel document. And then I'm going to pick up price and say save. Okay. We can go ahead and import these. Ask me again, would you like to create a backup? Nope. I'm going to go ahead and continue. It does make you close out every time I do this. I forget. You have to close out of the Excel file. There. Okay. Try again. And then it'll go through. Now, what it does is it populates this field. It says, hey, the record already exists, which is great. When you're doing any kind of import, you want it to recognize, hey, something with this name already exists on this list. What do you want to do? So you can say, I want to keep existing data and discard import data. So if it's duplicate records, don't change QuickBooks. Second thing, if it exists already, replace existing data with import data, ignoring blank fields. So just change what is on my spreadsheet. Or replace existing data with import data, including blank fields. So if it's blank on my Excel spreadsheet, make it blank in QuickBooks. Right? So this is scary. This is like a big change. You want to make sure that you do a backup before you do any of this stuff. There is no undo. There's no Control Z. So I'm going to replace existing data with import data, ignoring blank fields. Now, I can hit apply, and it will apply to the first line. So you want to make sure if you believe in what the choice that you made here, you want to apply to all, because otherwise it'll ask you for every line. All right. Imported 60 records, 16 had errors or warnings. Would you like to save the error log? So I can save that as error 2, one earlier. And then, of course, to open up anything coming from QuickBooks like that, you have to go into Excel. So I'm doing that on my other screen real quick so I can get into it. And you can see what the assemblies doesn't support this item. Man, those poor inventory assemblies. Non-inventory parts. Says you can't change the item type from inventory to any inventory part to another part. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why it gave us that error. I don't think it gave me this error earlier. I would have looked it up and seen why. But anyway, always when you're live. So I have to go look at why. Like, because these are all inventory parts. I don't know why it didn't pick them up as inventory parts. Okay. Oh, I know why. Actually, I think I know why. Because when we exported, no, that shouldn't be why. Anyway, I don't know why. I'll have to go. I'd have to go look. Not for right now. Okay, the last one, IIF File Imports. So we don't usually recommend using these ever, but in the last couple of years, they claim, QuickBooks claims that they fixed the IIF File Import because now it goes through the API. So you should not have the corruption that would happen in previous years. So the way to do the export, the IIF file changes would be to export the IIF file to Excel. Oops, I did import file, utilities, export the list to Excel first, and export that items list. Again, I have to go into Excel to open up this file. So when I browse to find it, what happens is it gives me this import wizard. It knows already, right? It's delimited with a tab, so I can say finish. It opens up this nasty looking file. IIF files are so yucky looking. Get rid of the first 20-ish lines, as always, because we just want to focus on where we get into the inventory parts. Now, the way I handle IIF files when I'm doing any kind of cleanup in here is I actually add a column in that I go back to. So I add an order. This is my sort order, right? Because when you get down and you're looking at these files, you get down into the formatting of like inventory assemblies as an example. They have, this is the inventory assembly. This is the part, finished good. And they have all the components in here, right? And I don't want to mess with any of the components right now because components don't hold a price. They don't hold prices, they just hold quantities. So if I need to import the IIF file, I need it to be in this format, the way that IIF files need to be. So I put in a sort order so that once I'm done doing all my cleanup, I just sort it back to this order so that it goes back in the order it was in originally. Now that sort order is taken care of, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a sort by price. I have everything with the price in this area. I can do the same thing where I insert in a column, do the whole roundup, paste the prices in here, copy and paste special the prices in here. I'm rushing because we're at time. All the prices are updated. Now all the prices are updated. I go back and sort back to my sort order. We're back in our original order. And then I can get rid of this column, save my IIF file, and then come back into QuickBooks and import. The IIF file importing will go way faster than any other importing that you could possibly do. Okay. If you guys are questioning, how should I do this? Definitely reach out first, or definitely do a backup. Always do a backup, no matter what, do a backup. Oh, I've got it open, of course. Okay, guys. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, so hopefully you guys were able to take away something. Coming up in the next couple of weeks, we have all things journal entries. We're talking about journal entries next week. When you shouldn't use them. We're going to have item categories coming up in a couple of weeks. I mentioned those a little bit earlier. And I'm going to hang out for just a minute to answer some questions. But if you don't have anything for me, I hope you guys could learn something. And we'll see you next week. Okay. All right. So I have a question here. It says, how do I look up prior webinars? on YouTube. So Fourlane, Fourlane, has a YouTube channel. You could subscribe to that channel, and I think you get notified. You get notified if anything gets uploaded to our channel, which we do every couple weeks. And all of our prior webinars are there. There's actually like 400 training videos there, just like tons of stuff. Lots of content out there. If you guys want to check that out. So Connie was asking, what corruption happens with IIF files? So, so Connie, here's the thing about IIF files. They are in a format, Intuit interchange format. They're a format of how to talk to Intuit that originally bypassed the API. So what that meant was when we were looking at some of the fields, some of the files, let me open one up real quick again. There are fields on this format that actually don't even exist in QuickBooks. Like we don't have access to them. You have access to them through the API. If you look at them, it doesn't exist. And so what can happen is that in these IIF files, it can be trying to push data into fields that doesn't exist, or like, you know, timestamps, trying to update timestamps. Why? We don't have a timestamp for anything having to do with items. Sometimes you'll see in them multiple quantity fields. Like there's 2 quantity fields, and so people will come to us and say, which quantity field am I supposed to import into? And what sometimes third-party applications do, now Big Red's probably not this, right? Third-party applications do is that they don't know either, so they just put quantity in both of them, and just kind of like hope nothing goes wrong. Yeah, there's just a lot of opportunity for errors. And so what happens, what we've seen with IIF file imports in the past is that people have been doing them for a long time. The corruption doesn't happen immediately, it happens after years. The balance sheet starts going out of balance, and then we start seeing data start dropping off the system. You know, it's not, I don't want to scare, but like, and it's not every time. There's no, yes, this is it. But most of the time when we start seeing major file corruptions, we say, do you do IIF file imports? IIF file imports, payroll, right? And usually things around build assemblies, those are like the biggest culprits. Not all the time. We have plenty of clients that don't, right? That's why file maintenance is so important. You guys, we take care of our Outlook file, our PST. We make sure that it's, you know, condensed down and we're not having years and years of data in there. We need to do the same thing with QuickBooks data. So there's a lot of different maintenance tools that we do with our clients to make sure that they are keeping their database healthy, right? Okay, how do you turn inventory on if you don't see across the top bar? So inside of QuickBooks, you have edit and preferences, and then items and inventory, and then you have to check this inventory and purchase orders are active. It enables purchase orders at the same time. There's that. Can you import an Excel into deposits? So they do have the accountants batch enter transactions, and you have checks, deposits, credit cards, charges, bills, credits. And we have another webinar, I'm guessing, on batch enter transactions. I know it shows under the accountants drop down here, but if you set yourself up in the file using the role of external accountant, then you get access to this. So you can batch enter deposits there, and it's a similar look where you can customize columns. If it's something that you're really, I mean, no manual entry should happen if you have the data in a format that we can import from, right? In Excel or CSV or wherever, you know, web store, wherever you want, wherever you have data. If the data is in a system somewhere, we should never be keying in data again. So there are other import tools as well that we will recommend that are third-party apps, but still very inexpensive, like $200 or something, right? So let's see. Okay. So Donna, this is I had a group of rental charges. This is like a very different question than what we covered today. So what I'd recommend, if you want to shoot me an email, then we can set up maybe a consult for you to talk about options. You can add, so just in a quick, you can add sales tax as a line item on an invoice, right? So I can come in, I don't know if sales tax is turned on. Sales tax isn't turned on this file, but I can add sales tax as a line item in an invoice down below here, yeah. But what it won't happen if I add it here, when I look down below and it says total sales tax payments applied, it won't total the sales tax in that sales tax box. It'll just be here. Anyway, let us know what you're trying to do. Okay, guys. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your week. If there's anything else, please let me know. Thanks, everybody.